All right, so this is week 2 of dating, and if you remember last week, we talked about the purpose of dating. Anybody remember what the purpose of dating is? Marriage, all right? We said, hey, if you're going to date somebody, it's not just for recreation. It's not just, hey, I have nothing better to do. Let me spend some time going out on some dates. We said that the end goal of your dating should be that you're going to either marry the person you're dating, or hopefully that dating process will point you towards the type of person you want to date one day, or you want to marry one day. And so today, we're going to continue on with our dating series, and we're going to focus a lot more on when to date. Like, what's the right time for you to date? And some of you are like, hey, this is easy. My parents have told me you can't date until you're in your 40s, so don't even worry about it. Don't talk to boys, don't talk to girls, whatever. And you're set. But for a lot more of you in here, I think the question becomes, hey, when am I ready to date? Because you may be in the situation where you're like, hey, someone in my life, okay, they're interested in me, and they've talked to me like, hey, you want to go do something? And you're like, should I do that? Am I ready for this? Is this the time? Am I in a place to do this? Is this the right person today? And we'll talk about the right person in our last part of dating in just a couple weeks. But really the question is, hey, when am I ready to invite somebody in to a close dating relationship? Because that's really what you're doing. You're inviting somebody into your life to be close to you, to see your life close up, firsthand, to be a part of your life, to influence you, to have you influence them. And it's really important to know when you're ready to do that, when you're in a solid place where you can do it. And so as I was getting ready for today, I wanted to do a little demonstration for you that I saw done recently that I thought was just kind of helpful when you think about when you're ready for dating in your life. And so when I think about this, I think about how a lot of times in life we divide our life up into different parts, right? And so we may say as we're dividing our life up, like, okay, how are things going? I'm doing okay with sports. All right, school's going okay. My family life is all right. Things are going good. I'm going to be dating somebody. That's going all right. I'm having a good time in my dating relationship. Maybe I got a job. I'm making some money. Life's pretty good. And then you go, hey, guess what? My life is together. Everything's going okay. And even better, Jesus is on top of my life, right? He's the top priority in my life. He's at the very top. Everything's good. Job's good. School's good. My family stuff's going good. I got a dating relationship. Everything's all right. And then something happens, right? You're playing football and you tear your knee and something happens and the whole thing falls apart. Because you've built your life, you've built your success on things that aren't Jesus. And so Jesus, who is up at the top, you're like, look how good I am, right? He's my top priority. He even falls. So I want you to think about what would happen if instead you say, hey, my foundation, the first thing I'm going to worry about, for those of you guys over there who can't see, is Jesus, all right? Like, the first thing I'm going to worry about in my life is Jesus. And so then I'm going to worry about, hey, how am I doing in school? And then, hey, do I have a job? And, hey, is my family okay? Are they driving me crazy? Oh, cool, I got a girl that I can date. And I can't remember what the other one was. Maybe it was sports. There you go, all right? And you can begin to build your life on Jesus. And then when it turns out you're dating some guy who you thought was great, maybe he does love Jesus, but he turns out to be a little crazy, and the dating thing falls apart. Not everything falls. And what's most important is that Jesus is still there because he's the foundation of your life, the thing that you're building everything else on, okay? Not just your school, not just things going on with your family, but like what we're talking about in this series, your dating relationships. And so a lot of times we focus on all this other stuff first, and then we go, man, if I can get that stuff together and my life doesn't look crazy, then when all that's working, I'll look at Jesus and I'll let him take control of all that stuff, and he'll be the thing that's on top of it all. But that falls apart, okay? We've got to make sure that Jesus is our foundation, because here's what happens. Before you can date in a way that honors God, you have to make sure your foundation is built on Jesus, because what happens is a lot of times we want to put the purpose of our life or the foundation of our life in the hands of somebody else. And we want to say, hey, man, I've got this girl in my life. I really like her, and she's really great, and my happiness day to day depends on this girl. And hey, guess what? Something bad goes on in my life. It's a rough day. I have a fight with my parents. I fail a test. I hurt my knee on the football team, and I run to that girl, and I talked to her about it. But that's not the way that we're designed. We're not designed to run to some girl or some guy first. We're designed to run to God first. We're designed to go to him, because here's the thing, a guy or a girl in your life, really any person, they make really bad gods in our lives because they're not designed to carry the weight of another person's life. Right? Think about your life. Think about how hard it can be at times and how you're like, man, I'm a wreck. I need help. I need support. And then you dump somebody else's problems right on top of yours. You're not ready for it. We're not equipped to carry all of that mess. We can hardly carry the stress and the things going on in our own lives. We can't carry the weight of somebody else's stuff. That's what God is designed to do. That's why God sent Jesus, so that we could have connection with him and we could depend on God for our strength and our hope and our fulfillment. And so we see this in Ephesians 2. If you were here at church a few weeks ago, we talked about this in the main service. Ephesians 2, verses 19 through 22 says this. It'll be on the screen. It says, you're no longer foreigners and strangers, basically people separated from God, but fellow citizens with God's people and also members of his house. So it's a great passage here where Paul's trying to explain, hey, people who used to be far off from God, you're now drawn near to God. You're in a relationship with him. You're not a stranger. And then he says, you're members of his house, and that house, that community of people, those relationships are built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets with Jesus himself as the cornerstone. All right, the fact that Jesus is the foundation. The cornerstone would be like the strongest part of a building, the thing that holds it all together. And that's how our lives are supposed to be built. They're supposed to be built with Jesus as the thing that it's all built on, that it's all established on, the thing that it's all rooted in. And the thing is, that's what Jesus wants to do. That's what God has sent Jesus to do in our lives, is to be the thing that we depend on, the person that we lean on, the one that we go to for strength and for hope. You know, in Exodus 34, God's given out kind of some rules to his people, and in that passage, he talks about how you're not supposed to have any other gods, and then he says, and hey, guess what? I'm jealous. God's saying he is jealous. He wants to be the only thing that we lean on, depend on for strength in our lives. He wants to be the one that we worship. And so God doesn't want to share that role. He doesn't want it to be, hey, Jesus is over here as the foundation. Oh, and then also this girl and these other things too, kind of extended out. No, Jesus wants to be the foundation of our lives, the only thing that we depend on. So before you can start a dating relationship, you've got to understand your life has to center on Jesus. And I think Madeline mentioned that her parents said they didn't want her to actually start going out on dates until she's 16. And if you've been here before and we've talked about dating, you know that I kind of have an unofficial rule that I push out to our students and say, hey, you don't have to follow this. It's not in Scripture, but I think it's wise if you wait until you're 16 to start dating. You don't have to wait until you're 16 to like have a crush on somebody or talk to a boy sometime, or maybe you go to a group thing and hang out together. That's even what Michael and Madeline did, right? But before you start like dating, like say, hey, we're like, it's me and you, we're dating, we're going to pursue this relationship together, I really don't think you have any business doing it before you're 16 for this simple reason. Okay, I'm 37 and I struggle with making sure that Jesus is the foundation in my life, making sure that my life is centering on God. Okay, and I've got more years behind me than you do. Not saying I'm better or whatever, just been doing this maybe a little longer than some of you. And what I would say for you is you need time to mature and to grow spiritually, to fully understand what the gospel is and to know what God's purpose is for you and for the world, and to be able to center your life on who God is. And I think you need a little time to get there. And I think to say at 12 or 13 or 14, hey, I'm going to go ahead and open up my life to a close dating relationship with somebody, I think it's just a little premature. It's a little bit too early. I think you need a little bit of time. Because I think over those years you begin to develop good habits, things like, hey, things go bad in your life, like we talked about a minute ago, and you run to God first, and you don't run to this 12-year-old boyfriend who's like, I don't know, I'm going to go play Fortnite. I don't know what your problem is, right? Like, you need to have a habit of running to God first. So 16, that's what I would suggest. And so when we think about the idea of having a foundation that's built on Jesus, you need some time to develop that, to lean into that. I didn't really even start dating in a consistent dating relationship for me until I was in my 20s, and I think it did me very well. I was in college before I really committed to say, hey, not I'm going to go on a date here and there, but I'm going to date somebody. And I think it helped me a lot. It made me dependent on God. It made me dependent on some relationships that pointed me to God, some friends that were very helpful. And I think it was to my benefit over the years. You don't have to do life just like me, but I'm saying that's one of the things that I benefited from. And so when we think about this, we want to say, okay, our life built on Jesus is more than just, hey, I have a relationship with Jesus. I at one point committed my life to Jesus. I got baptized, and every once in a while I read my Bible. Okay, that's not your life built on Jesus. Your life built on Jesus means that you're an obedient person, that you know God's word and you're trying to follow it the best that you can. It means that you give grace to other people and you understand what grace is that God's given to you. And it means you have some daily routines in your life that are drawing you closer to Jesus. And as you're in that and you're pursuing Jesus and your foundation is there, I think you can then start to ask some questions. So I have 4 things today that I want you to consider before you date. And I think some of these are going to come up on the screen. And so if you're a note taker, you take pictures, you might take a picture of the screen when it's done, because I think these are good questions for you to ask yourself whenever you start thinking, hey, am I ready to date? All right? I think this is where it all really hits the road. The first one is my relationship with Jesus more important to me than him or her, than the guy or a girl? All right, when you think about your life, you go, hey, is my relationship with Jesus more important? Would I put that first? And I think about that, kind of a question that follows that up is, what routines have you put in your life that show that? Because if you start dating a guy or a girl, you're going to have some routines, all right? That girl's going to want to text you at certain times. That guy's going to want to text you at certain times. You're going to want to like, hey, on Fridays we do this. Like, you're going to have these routines, okay? And before you establish those routines with some guy or some girl, what routines do you have established that make your relationship with Jesus strong? So that's the first one. Is your relationship with Jesus more important? The second one, and this is key, all right, is his or her relationship with Jesus more important to me than my relationship with them? So you go, man, I really like this girl. She's super sweet. She loves Jesus. We have a lot of things in common, right? Like, she's a Doctor Who fan, so am I. You got whatever your deal is. You've got those things in common. You're feeling good about it. There's good chemistry. You respect their character. Then you have to say, hey, do I value their relationship with God over their relationship with me? And the reason that is important is that shows that you see people, especially them, like God sees them. And you say, hey, I want what is best for them, not what is best for me. I want what is spiritually good for them, not what's just, emotionally or physically good for me. I want their relationship with Jesus to trump my relationship with them. That's a great place to be, because a lot of times, we talked about this last week, we get into relationships and it's super selfish. What can I get from this? How is this going to work out well for me? But when you can say instead, no, it's about them, and it's about them pursuing Jesus well, it helps you. So it's not, hey, that girl's super hot, or hey, that girl's super popular, and if I can get with her and be connected with her, guys are going to think a certain thing about me. No, that's about you, all right? So it's not that. It's about going, hey, is that person growing in their pursuit and their knowledge of God? And that also helps you recognize if you're helping someone or you're hurting them physically, emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. All right? Is their relationship with Jesus more important than their relationship with you? So those are your first 2, all right? Kind of good perspective questions. Here's another one, all right? And it's going to touch some buttons for some of you, but it's right there. Do I struggle with lust, or do I have a desire to use this person for my benefit? Here's how this goes. If you're struggling with lust right now and you're not dating somebody, this is for guys or girls, okay? For guys, a lot of times it comes down to the basic porn stuff or just looking at stuff you shouldn't. For girls, a lot of times it can just be like, oh my goodness, have you seen his abs? Or what? I mean, like, it happens, all right? I've heard the way y'all talk about Zac Efron and different people. Like, I know it's there. You struggle with lust too. But if you struggle with that when you're not dating someone, what makes you think that you'll respect physical boundaries when you get into a close relationship with somebody of the opposite gender? It's not going to happen, all right? If you're struggling with that now, then you need to put some steps in place and to pursue some healing and some growth with your struggles with lust before you get close to someone of the opposite gender. It's like pouring gas on a fire. And then this is just a quick little side note. And I want to wrap up quick, but this is just a quick side note. A lot of times people say, hey, when I'm dating somebody, yeah, we're not married yet, but I've got some like privileges with that person because I'm dating them, right? And there's some things that we can do because we're dating that I wouldn't just do with some guy or girl that I kind of like and whatever. Like, but I just want to make it clear. We talked about this last year. You don't have any physical privileges with somebody until you marry them, okay? So if you're in a dating relationship and you find yourself in a spot where you're doing stuff you don't need to do, or you feel like you're getting pressured to do something you don't need to do, you need to get out of that relationship because those privileges don't exist until you're married. But a lot of times you think, hey, man, I'm in this dating relationship, which is probably going to be temporary, and you say, that's not too far from being married, right, which is like a huge commitment in the eyes of God. And so to equate those two things, to say dating somebody, which could like blow up and break up at any moment, if you say that is the same as marrying somebody, which is a commitment forever, like you're off base. If you're dating, you don't have certain privileges with that guy or that girl just because you're dating. It means nothing, all right? So respect their boundaries and don't get confused. That's a lie to believe that you've got some privileges. So 3 of our 4 questions, right? You can see them on the screen. Here's the last one. And don't like smirk and go, whatever. This last one's important. What do my parents think about me dating? All right? Now, we've talked today about having a foundation. I saw some of your faces, all right? We talked about having a foundation that's built on Jesus that's, hey, I'm trying to be spiritually mature and pursue Jesus. Here's the thing. Your parents know you better than you think they do, okay? And then also, if you are spiritually mature, if you're pursuing Jesus, someone who's spiritually mature pursuing Jesus values the input of their parents. If you don't, it's a sign of spiritual immaturity. To be somebody who says, my foundation's on Jesus, everything is built on it, means that you at least listen to your parents and consider what their input would be. They know you well enough, and they know you well enough to know, hey, what you value. And so they'll help you with that. If they know, man, you're trying to pursue Jesus, and you're trying to date somebody who's like crazy and isn't connected to Jesus in any way, they're probably going to call you out on it. And that's a good thing. So if you walk through these questions, I think it'll help you build a strong foundation on Jesus before you try and build a relationship with a guy or a girl. And I want to remind you that you can never consider dating apart from considering God. Those two things are intertwined when you know that the purpose of dating is to get married. And so just remember that Jesus is before some guy or some girl. A guy or a girl makes a horrible God for you. But man, our God is an amazing, dependent, faithful, loyal, trustworthy, powerful God that's worth your attention, your devotion, and your obedience, because he's done so much for us. So when you think about that today, we'll go to our table groups. You'll talk a little bit more about when you're ready for it. And next week, we're going to take a break from dating. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our final week of it, and we'll talk more about who you should date, all right? Don't worry, we're not going to like pair you up and be like, here you go, you're probably going to marry this person, but we'll talk about some things that will help you along the way.